button.
Chapter 6, Shadow. Great. Just great. Oh, what have I done? Aura's the only other one to know about this. Why would I tell an almost complete stranger? Then again, what else was I supposed to say? Ugh, what have I gotten myself into? She probably hates me now. Nebula was staring at him in absolute disbelief. You're joking, right? You can't actually be part demon, right? Shadow felt like curling into a ball and never coming out again. He could turn invisible and leave, but he couldn't avoid... He could turn invisible and leave, but he couldn't avoid Nebula for the rest of his life. That would only delay the inevitable. No, I actually am half demon. Sort of. Technically in this form I'm completely wolf, but my other form is able to take control of me when I get really mad about something, and I lose control of my body. My other form is half demon, and it will obliterate the thing or wolf I was mad at. I really don't like when that happens. Nebula's expression changed from disbelieving to concern. Wait. So at any moment you could get mad at something I did, and your other form would try to obliterate me? Why don't you warn everyone you meet not to make you mad, or else they might die? Seriously! Nebula now looked furious. Shadow winced. Because everyone would immediately hate me and I would live alone my entire life, he offered. Still not a good enough reason! Nebula shouted so loud that Shadow was sure that everyone else could hear her from the main hall. Aqua came bounding into the room. What in the world is happening here? Why are you shouting at the top of your lungs? I thought that was my job. But seriously, what has happened? She looked from Shadow to Nebula, then back at Shadow. Well, it's definitely a good reason, because Shadow here just said he's part demon. Shadow tried to cut Nebula off, but his voice was drowned out by hers. Aqua gazed wide-eyed at Shadow. Shadow? Is this true? Aqua was using her trying not to freak out, but ultimately failing voice, which was a bad sign. Yes. Shadow could hear paw steps, which meant that now everyone in the Legion knew his secret. Could this day get any worse? Head spinning, Shadow could no longer hear the other wolves' voices. He could only keep replaying the whole scenario in his head. Looking around, but still not able to hear anything, it seemed like Nebula was now explaining that what Shadow had told her to the other Legion members. Oddly enough, Aura wasn't with them. Hadn't he heard Nebula's screaming? Shadow currently didn't have enough brain power to guess why. As everything swirled around him, he felt himself falling, and with a dizzying rush, the world went black. Chapter 7, Aura. Gosh, what is all this commotion? Aura sat up and padded out of his room. He was trying to enjoy his evening, but he kept hearing shouting from farther down the hall. Sounds like it's coming from Shadow's room. Aura quickened his pace. If Nebula has done anything, I swear. Aura burst into the room. Every member of the Legion, along with Nebula, Aura was too suspicious of her to consider becoming a part of the Legion, was standing over a heap of black and red fur. Aura's voice boomed through the room. What happened? Nebula looked up at him. She seemed just as panicked as the other wolves. Shadow was showing me some of his art, and then I asked him what one of his pictures was, and the next thing I know, he's telling me he's part demon, and when Aqua and the others came storming in because they heard me yelling, and I explained to them what happened, then Shadow passed out. Just as I suspected. Aura interrupted her. This is all your fault. What were you thinking, yelling so loud we could hear you across the building? And you just told everyone here Shadow's secret? No wonder he's unconscious. Get out now. The rest of you stay here and wait for further instructions. I'll deal with you later. He finished, glaring at Nebula. She was so shocked that she didn't protest as she ran off in the direction of her room. Aura knew Nebula couldn't be trusted now, if he had any doubt before. He just wished he had convinced Shadow before his secret was revealed to the rest of the Legion. Aqua raced across the room to Aura. He's waking up. Aura jerked around and ran over to Shadow, who was laying down in his nest and looking groggily around at the wolves standing over him. They had waited several hours in Shadow's room, waiting for him to wake up. Aura had dismissed the rest of the wolves to continue on with the rest of their day, and he would report to them later. Shadow looked up at Aura, confused. What happened? Where's Nebula? He croaked. Aura rested his tail on Shadow's shoulder. Don't worry, I'll make sure to deal with her. You just worry about getting better, Aura assured him. Shadow sat up, suddenly alert. I remember! Everyone knows my secret. Oh no. Shadow clutched his head in his paws. Yes, and it was because of Nebula. I really wish I had convinced you sooner. Shadow shook his head. It wasn't her fault. Passed out. What did they think of me now? Aura looked at Shadow in surprise. How can you not blame Nebula for all this? She's the reason you passed out in the first place. Shadow just shook his head again, not responding. Surely Shadow wasn't thinking clearly because he just woke up. Surely he had to see that Nebula was a serious danger to the Legion of Lost Elements, and needed to be rid of her so they could find the real 10th Wolf. Chapter 8. Nebula. Nebula plopped herself down on her nest, miserable. Shadow was unconscious, everyone knew he was part demon, and Aura was furious at her. This is all my fault. What was I thinking? She groaned. Aura would be kicking her out and dooming the entire world in the process any minute now. As the minutes ticked by, Nebula sat there, doing absolutely nothing in fear of somehow messing things up more, if that was even possible. After several hours of waiting, someone crept into her room. She looked up, eyes burning with hate, but it wasn't Aura. Aqua stood there, nervous as if she too was imagining what Aura might do to Nebula. Aura wants to see you, she said, trying to sound as casual as possible, but her nervousness crept into her tone. Nebula nodded, then got up and walked as slow as she could in awkward silence to the main hall. Aura sat there waiting, Shadow sitting beside him. Nebula searched Shadow's face for any anger towards her, but he just looked worried. Even if he wasn't showing it, surely Shadow must be at least a little frustrated with Nebula. Her thoughts went back to Shadow's warning, but Nebula reasoned that if his other form were going to attack her, it probably already would have by now. Tentatively, Nebula sat down across from Shadow and Aura. Aura turned his head to glare at Nebula with so much force that it took her a lot of effort not to flinch. Shadow glanced from Aura to Nebula, looking helpless. Finally, Aura spoke, breaking the silence. I've decided that the Legion of Lost Elements is better off without such infuriating members. Nebula is clearly not the 10th Wolf, so she will be escorted back home tomorrow morning. Then we can find the real 10th Wolf. Shadow was looking at Aura in disbelief. But Aura, I'm completely sure that the wolf in my vision was Nebula. By sending her back home, you're doing the entire world. You must have been mistaken. Maybe the vision wasn't real at all. I'm sure Star will send us a real one soon. Shadow started shouting, which was something Nebula had never seen him do, and by the look on Aura's face, he hadn't either. Look at yourself, Aura. Do you hear the words you're saying? I've had visions of the other wolves before, and they've always been right. You've been obsessed with finding the 10th wolf for the past 2 years, and when we actually find her, you just want to get rid of her. Explain! Aura opened his mouth to speak, then shut it again. He was clearly startled by his friend's hostility. Fine, he finally choked out. She can stay, but if anything like what happened a few hours ago happens again, she's leaving, and I'm still keeping a close eye on her. Shadow slowly nodded, as if he was relieved to had gotten his way, but feeling guilty about yelling at Aura. You are dismissed. Nebula nodded her head toward them and stalked off. Nebula got to her paws and headed nervously toward Shadow's room. It was the next day, and Nebula hadn't gotten a chance to apologize to Shadow. As she approached the entrance, Aura stepped out of the shadows. Where do you think you're going? Nebula halted. To apologize to Shadow. Aura nodded, and he reluctantly let her continue. I'll be right out here, so don't try anything. Nebula's only reply was a shiver. It was unnerving to think that Aura was watching her every move, trying to uncover some secret plan to kill them all. As she stepped inside, Shadow turned his head. His expression was unreadable, but he didn't look mad. I came to apologize, she said. Oh, okay. Nebula launched into her speech she had thought of before coming into Shadow's room. I'm really sorry about what happened. I probably shouldn't have told the entire rest of the Legion. I promise I won't yell like that again. I feel really bad about it. Shadow looked at her for a few moments, then smiled. I forgive you. Nebula just stared. Wow, that was easy. Apparently it's really hard to make Shadow mad. Maybe that's why I just...
Hi, are you there?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, we'll be there soon. Dan's driving very slow.
We're just a couple minutes away.
We're a couple minutes away, yeah. Okay, all right. Okay.
Wow, that was easy. Apparently it's really hard to make Shadow mad. Maybe that's why he doesn't tell anyone, because it's nearly impossible. Shadow shoveled his paws. Want to talk for a while? Sure. Shadow padded back over to his desk and continued his latest painting, a swirling galaxy filled with colorful planets and stars. Nebula sat down beside him. I'm glad you convinced Aura to let me stay, but is it actually possible that I'm not the 10th wolf? I mean, I think if I had any magical powers, I would know, right? Nebula said. Shadow replied, but didn't look up from his painting. I know what you mean, but I didn't know I had any special abilities either. None of the wolves in the Legion knew they had any right away, although the prophecy mentioned you're the most important, so I would assume they're really cool. What are your abilities? She asked. I saw you turn invisible on the day you guys found me, but that's all I know about these powers you have. Well, each of us has 2 or 3 different abilities. I can turn invisible and phase through objects. I wonder what yours will be, considering the prophecy says you're the most important part. Alright, and that's how far I've gotten so far. I don't know how to stop this. So, here we go.
You are so talented.
I am.
You write so good. I mean, especially for your age.